Calling, I'm calling to order this hearing. This is a public hearing of the Committee of the Whole of the Council of the District of Columbia. I'm Phil Mendelson, Chair of the Council and Chair of the Committee of the Whole. Today is Tuesday, November 28th, 2023. The time is 11:20 in the morning, and we are in person in room 412 of the Johnny Wilson Building, but I believe most of the witnesses will be participating virtually via the Zoom video conference broadcast platform. The subject of today's hearing is three bills. Bill 25-350, entitled the MacArthur High School Designation Act of 2023. This legislation was introduced by Council Member Fruman of Ward 3 on June 27th, 2023. And the stated purpose of this bill is to officially designate the new high school that is just off of MacArthur Boulevard or Q Street or Clark Place or Laverock Place, to designate it as MacArthur High School. Currently, the school has no official name, although it is referred to quite commonly as MacArthur High School. The second bill that's subject of today's hearing is Bill 25-473, entitled School Facilities Sponsorship and Naming Amendment Act of 2020. This bill was introduced by me on September 18th, 2023. This legislation would clarify in the law that DCPS may on its own name an interior space of a building, such as an auditorium, without coming to the council for approval. It would also establish a uniform system for naming any field or interior space similar to what the council has already adopted as law, sponsorship and naming convention that we've given the authority to for the Department of Parks and Recreation. This bill would allow DCPS to do the same. For example, several DPR fields have been sponsored and named for Washington Nationals Major League Baseball players. And there's a mutual benefit in that, in the case of the current law, the Department of Parks and Recreation does get some improvements to these fields paid for by the sponsoring organization. So this bill 25-473 would extend the same to DCP, the same authority to DCPS. The third bill that's subject of this morning's hearing is Bill 25-539, entitled Shirley Chisholm Elementary School Redesignation Act of 2023. This legislation was introduced by Councilmember Charles Allen of Ward 6 on October 11th of this year. And the purpose of the bill is to officially designate, rename the school known as Tyler Elementary School to rename it Shirley Chisholm Elementary School. We have a number of witnesses. I think we have 8 who are signed up to testify. I'm going to recognize colleagues in a second for opening statements if they have any. The record in this matter will close at 5 p.m. in 2 weeks. That is Tuesday, December 12th, 2023, to give folks an opportunity to submit comments if they're not testifying today. Who's here? Councilmember Allen, I believe you were here first. Do you have an opening statement?
Why, yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
I appreciate that. Well, first off, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding today's hearing. I'm going to speak specifically about one bill that's the subject of the hearing today. Tyler Elementary School, which is located on Capitol Hill in Ward 6, has as its namesake John Tyler, who, for those of you who may not remember, was the 10th president of the United States, serving from 1841 to 1845. Now, while he may have served as president of our country at one point, this is not someone who embodied our values. He was an enslaver. He believed in racist policies. He actively sought to expand slavery to the new territories and states that were being added to the Union. When the Civil War came around after his term as presidency, he voted for Virginia to secede. He then also betrayed our country and was elected to the Confederacy House of Representatives. When you look at his history and then compare that with the rich diversity of the school community we have today, His name and his legacy could not be more inappropriate or at odds with this amazing and wonderful school community. Now, flash forward to 2020 and the reckoning that took place not only here, but across the country. The school community got together and also realized that John Tyler is not an appropriate namesake. The school PTA circulated 3 surveys in 2021, 2022, and 2023 to collect ideas for new names for students and from students and families. A PTA subcommittee was formed. It reviewed 121 nominated names and evaluated them based on specified criteria. To decide on a name earlier this year, the community used an extensive ranked choice voting process that included former staff, families, community members, students, caregivers, and the community, and decided to rename the school after Shirley Chisholm. Now, Shirley Chisholm was the first Black woman to be elected to the United States Congress and later became the first Black candidate who ran for her party's nomination for president. She was known throughout her career for being a resolute supporter of civil rights and women's rights, fiercely fought to end economic, social, and political injustices. In Congress, she introduced more than 50 pieces of legislation. She championed racial and gender equality, the plight of the poor, and ending the Vietnam War. I agree with the community that Shirley Chisholm is an exceptional role model and better represents the inclusive and anti-racist values of the school community. I am proud to have introduced this legislation. I want to note for the record that Advisory Neighborhood Commission 6B, where the school is located, also supports the name change. I recently attended a PTA meeting and could feel the excitement from the students, the parents, and the school staff for today's hearing. I received a book of letters from students that were supporting the name change. I'm just going to read one here. Hello, my name is Derek, and I'm a 5th grader at Tyler Chisholm Elementary. We want the name to change because it was named after someone who did bad things like enslaving people and was against that being illegal. And we want the school to be named after Shirley Chisholm because she did not do bad things, and she was the first Black woman to be elected for Congress. Sincerely, Derek Carter. Pretty straightforward. Derek, great job. So before I conclude, I just want to take a moment to express my gratitude and my thanks to the school community for not only being engaged and exceptional members, but for being part of the renaming process that was above all lengthy, transparent, and inclusive. I especially want to thank Nick Berger, Leah Siskind, and Principal Brand for their exceptional leadership throughout that process to build community consensus toward this change. So I'm looking forward to the hearing today, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for making sure this got on the agenda.
Thank you, Councilmember Allen. Councilmember Fruman.
Thank you very much, Chairman Mendelson. I'm here to speak to the legislation that I put forward on the name for MacArthur High School. I have to say it's a little hard to follow Derek, but I'm going to try. With the launch of MacArthur High School, I think we need to, before we even talk about the name, I think we have to take a minute to really express our gratitude to DCPS and DGS for what they've done to stand up a new high school. It's a pretty extraordinary accomplishment, and it has been enormously successful. Hats off to the leadership at DCPS. Hats off to Principal McCray, who has worked with the community from day one and built support for the school, and much, much to be proud of around this initiative. One of the reasons that it was done was to alleviate overcrowding at Jackson Reed, and already it has had an impact. And as it rolls out in each year with a new grade added, it can only help more on that critical problem. So thank you very, very much for that achievement. In terms of the name, again, kudos to DCPS, which did a community outreach process and solicited input on what the name of the school should be. And what came out of that was the name MacArthur. And it was clear in the comments and clear in the discussions that that was about a place, not a person. And that's important here because if we were voting to name the high school Douglas MacArthur High School, I think many of us would feel differently. Douglas MacArthur's history is mixed, but I don't think we want to name a school after him. And we may hear some commentary on that subject, but the place is associated with the high school. And in the community process, the vote was very clear that the name should be MacArthur. Moreover, as the school stood up, the question became what would be the mascot, and the students overwhelmingly supported the mascot Mammoths. And the reason that they did that was because they thought of it as the MacArthur Mammoths. MacArthur had been the name that had been used previously and had been embraced in the survey. So we have a momentum to get this done. I think it's been a great process so far. Maybe it's not exactly like Beyonce saying put a ring on it, but a little bit. We need to put a name on it. And today we have the chance to move forward in naming the school MacArthur. As we do that, I think we should be very clear that that is about a place, not an individual person. Thank you, Chairman Mendelson. I look forward to supporting this legislation.
Thank you, Councilmember Fruman. Councilmember Henderson?
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate that you're calling this hearing today, and I want to express my gratitude to my colleagues for their introduction of the bills. When the mayor started the renaming process or put together the working group in summer of 2020, it was out of a recognition that we do have some buildings, schools, otherwise, that were named after some individuals with complicated pasts who, as Councilmember Allen said, don't necessarily align with the values of the District of Columbia today. And then I was here on the council for the renaming of Woodrow Wilson High School to Jackson Reed High School. And I recall at that time, DCPS sort of very frustratingly saying, fine, we're not going to do it anymore. We're not going to do any more namings. And then we went quiet for a while, and I'm glad we're back to the work. And in doing so, laying out a process that makes it very clear around community engagement, and then also what is the process for naming other things within our school buildings, fields, scoreboards, auditoriums, libraries, et cetera. And so I think that having a process will make, or having a very clear process outlined in law will make it very clear for anyone in the future, and hopefully avoid any of the tensions or hard feelings that happened with the Wilson School renaming. So thank you so much. I look forward to the public witness testimony. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Henderson. So we're going to proceed to the witnesses. I believe all of them are participating virtually, so they're all going to be recognized or let in together. Fraser O'Leary, who's listed as a public witness, but I know he's the elected school board representative from Ward 4. Jasmine Braun or Bran, Elsa Falkenberg, Aaron Kershaw, Leah Siskind, Genevieve Smith, Cynthia Wilder, and Vanessa Grant, who's president of the Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Federal City Alumni Chapter. Let's begin with Mr. O'Leary. We'll have a 4-minute clock. If you're in gallery view, which I recommend, you'll see the clock at the top of your screen. Mr. O'Leary, and good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, council members. I am Fraser O'Leary, the Ward 4 representative and vice president of the State Board of Education, and these views are my own. As someone whose alma mater is the name of a street, Granby High School in Norfolk, Virginia, and who spent my career in a school named after someone whose history resonates every day with students and alumni, Francis Lewis Cardozo, it is important to me that any school's name is reflective. We've had 2 new schools open in Ward 4 since I have been on the board. They are Ida B. Wells Middle School and John Lewis Elementary School. The legacy of these historical figures is something that is followed every day in the buildings. My father served as a naval officer in the Pacific from 1942 to 1945. I remember him talking about Douglas MacArthur and his ego when I was growing up. It wasn't complimentary. MacArthur's history includes victories and times when he flagrantly disobeyed orders from 2 presidents, President Hoover and President Truman. I understand that the community is in favor of the name of MacArthur High School because of its location, and that the school's name has nothing to do with Douglas MacArthur. But I would like to pose an alternative. I think that the new high school should be named after Barack Obama. When I mentioned this to several of my friends in our government, they said that he is alive and it's against the law to issue a public space for someone who is alive. The exception to that, according to the law, is a president, a member of Congress, a mayor of DC, or a member of the DC City Council. I am just bringing this up as something for you to ponder. I understand the thing about MacArthur and its location, and I could accept that. But I think that it would be tremendous to name the school after our former president, who embodies everything that the students, the families, and the faculty would love entering every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Leary. Jasmine Brand.
Greetings, my name is Jasmine Brand, and I am the principal and lead learner at the soon-to-be-named Shirley Chisholm Elementary School located here in Ward 6. Shirley Anita St. Hill Chisholm was the first African-American woman in Congress in 1968, and the first woman and African-American to seek the nomination for President of the United States in 1972. She was an outspoken advocate for women and minorities during her 7 terms in the U.S. House of Representatives. Shirley Chisholm was certainly unbought and unbossed, as her life motto goes, which certainly reminds me of our precious students, like Honora, who just won her 4th grade class student council election and seems to always dance down the hallway, like Gloria, who sings with the grandest smile, like Joelle, who is poised and diplomatic, like Harlan, who loves a great math challenge in the mornings. And I could go on and on about all of our 567 precious souls my colleagues and I have the pleasure to serve each day. Shirley Chisholm was also a catalyst for change, and this is the same aspiration we share as a school family. We desire to make a positive impact upon each other, our community, and more broadly, the world. We strive to engage, educate, and empower our learners with excellence through bilingual, arts-integrated, and holistic learning. We emphasize leadership grounded in our values of being respectful, responsible, kind, and safe. And when I consider our school name change petition, I am so inspired. The process was efficient and streamlined. Students, staff, families, and community members helped to research candidates. The product was a short list of 4 incredible names for consideration: Elizabeth Catlett, Shirley Chisholm, of course, Shirley Horn, and Toni Morrison. Then a fair vote was conducted in June of this year to solicit stakeholder input. What I found most intriguing about the school name change experience, more than the process and products themselves, are the people and individuals who made it happen, their drive and motivation, our connection to a deep sense of equity, identity, and social justice, and your faith and belief in making real change. Yes, I am particularly appreciative for everyone's engagement. I'm grateful to my DCPS colleagues, Sarah Parker, Damian Popkin, Superintendent Bethel, and Chancellor Farabee for their support and confidence. Also, I deeply appreciate our school's renaming committee, led by Elsa Falkenberger and Aaron Kershaw, and last school year's PTA leadership, Nick Berger, Daphne Womack, and Stephanie Perez-Cohen. Also, I want to express sincere gratitude to Christina Restrepo-Harner, Assistant Principal Ms. Grace Wilson, and all of our wonderful teachers and staff for facilitating deep student learning and a successful, memorable student vote. Our new PTA leaders, including Vinay Chawla, Leah Siskind, Alex Floyd, and the team have helped to move this nomination forward with efficiency and drive, for which we are forever beholden. Thank you also to ANC 6B for your consideration and blessing. And our school family and I are grateful to Councilmember Allen for being a forever ally and meeting with us last month to help explain the next steps in the process with clarity and hope. Finally, I am always awestruck by the brilliance of our students. You'll hear from some of them here shortly. They exemplify the values of leadership and compassion Shirley Chisholm modeled for us all. And we commit to continued learning about her life and the lessons we can apply to shine our lights with even more illumination and conviction. Collectively, we gladly embrace this exhilarating new chapter for our school and look forward to writing the narrative of this beautiful story of evolution and promising change. Thank you for allowing me and my precious school family the platform and opportunity to share with you today.
Thank you, Ms. Brand. I'm told that you have a couple students with you who want to speak. Now we have procedures, and so you're over your time. So can you keep them, can we like a couple minutes from each?
Absolutely. Would you like to hear from them now? They're ready.
Yes.
Okay. We'll start with our youngest student in the room. Here she is.
Hello, hola. My name is Cynthia Wilder, and I am in first grade. I want my school name to be named Shirley Chisholm because she made the world better. She was my grandmother's fairy godmother. Ella fue una inspiración. This means she was inspiration. Thank you. Gracias.
Excellent job, Cynthia.
Thank you.
And now we'll hear from our next student.
Good morning. My name is Genevieve Smith, and I am a fourth grader at what is now Tyler Elementary. Last school year, I had the opportunity to vote on a new name for our school. My schoolmates and I worked very hard to learn and grow into the future leaders the world deserves. We deserve a school name for a person who reflects our country and our school's values. We do not deserve to be named after John Tyler. We deserve to be named after Shirley Chisholm. Miss Chisholm represents courage and change. She faced difficult times. She persisted. She was the first Black Congresswoman and the first woman presidential candidate. Why Shirley Chisholm? It makes sense. We are a bilingual art school. Did you know Miss Chisholm was fluent in Spanish? She worked for many years in Congress, just a few blocks away from my school. She inspires me. She inspires my schoolmates. She will continue to inspire many more in the future. What an honor it would be for our school to be named after such a trailblazer. Just like Shirley Chisholm, we are leaders. Somos líderes. Please help us change our school name. Thank you.
Excellent job.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kingston Kershaw, and I'm very happy to be here to speak with you guys. Today, I would like to talk about how we would like to change our name of the school from Tyler Elementary to Shirley Chisholm Elementary. Currently, our school is named after a horrible person named John Tyler. John Tyler is not a good person. He didn't believe slaves deserved the ability to learn how to read, which is an important thing that we all need to this day. He had much horrible actions. He was a traitor. He just doesn't represent us. I haven't heard a single one of our teachers teach about him. And that's why we should change our name. So we shouldn't look back at all the mistakes that some evil people have made, but we should look forward at all the great things we can do together. So please help us all change his name so we can have a better future for all the students.
Thank you. Is that everybody?
Yes, and then now our adult witnesses, now that you've heard from our student change makers.
All right, well, I have a witness list here. So
Yes.
I have Elsa Falkenberg next. Where is Elsa Falkenberg?
Right here.
Oh, there you are. Please proceed.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Mendelson, for having us here today. And thank you to Councilmember Allen and his staff for introducing the legislation necessary to bring justice to our school and our surrounding community. My name is Elsa Falkenberger, and I'm a parent of one current and one former student at John Tyler Elementary. We've been part of the school community and attempting to change the name of our school for nearly a decade. While this sounds like we have been slow and ineffective, and it certainly felt like that at times, this is not just about changing the name of a school. It's about addressing and redressing history, and that takes time. I will keep my remarks short today, but wanted to share a brief summary of the process we took over the past 4 years to get to this point of our renaming process, in the hopes of demonstrating that our process has been thorough and fair, but also in the hopes that others might do the same for public spaces and buildings in their communities. In 2019, the Tyler community officially started the process to change our school's name. We started extensive outreach to the school and broader community to explain the reasoning through flyers, social media, the school newsletter, tabling at school drop-off and pickup, and ANC and PTA meetings. At several PTA meetings, we discussed the legacy of John Tyler, which Aaron will get into next. Initially, some people were reticent to change the name, not knowing who John Tyler was and what he represented, and feeling like this was just more unwanted change coming to their community. However, just the basics on Tyler's history quickly allowed the truth and need for a new name to spread across parents and staff. This was an incredibly important part of the process. The PTA presented a resolution on renaming to an ANC 6B meeting on July 2020. The ANC passed the resolution, which called on DC Council to change the name of the school. Over the next 2 years, the PTA put out 3 surveys to collect ideas for new names from students, staff, and families. In April of this year, Aaron Kershaw and I led our Tyler renaming committee to review the 121 suggested names. We removed those that were ineligible for renaming under DC code, mostly because the person was alive or had not been deceased for 3 years or already had a school named after them. We created a scoring rubric that comprised of 7 criteria: historic significance, contribution to Black history, significance to Hispanic history, contribution to the arts, notable woman in history, district relevance, and contribution to social justice. 4 nominees received the highest scores and were selected for final consideration. These included DC-born artist, activist, and teacher Elizabeth Catlett, 7-term Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm, who also ran for the Democratic 1972 presidential nomination, DC native and jazz legend Shirley Horn, nominated for 9 Grammy Awards, and literary legend Toni Morrison, who was the first Black woman to earn the Nobel Prize in Literature for her work describing the realities of Black experience and racism in the United States. In June of this year, the PTA shared information on the 4 finalists and held an election through paper and electronic ballots. All community members, staff, students, current and former, and family members were eligible to vote, and by a narrow margin over Elizabeth Catlett, the community chose Shirley Chisholm Elementary as the name we put before the DC Council for approval today. As I mentioned before, addressing and redressing history takes time, but I think we are often quick to see acts of racism, like naming an elementary school after someone buried under the Confederate flag, as vestiges of the past. As we all know, racism is alive and well today. Until all schools, roads, public buildings, and other spaces are rid of their racist legacies, we have some work to do. I hope that our passion and process for renaming our school Shirley Chisholm inspires others to do the same for their communities and our city as a whole. Thank you for seeing justice through for our community today.
Thank you, Ms. Falkenberger. Aaron Kershaw. Aaron Kershaw,
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you, can't see you.
Okay, all right, sorry, computer problems. Yes, here we are. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Aaron Kershaw. This is my 10th year as a Tyler parent. Thank you for this opportunity to speak on an issue that is deeply personal to me and vital for our children's future. I want to bring attention to our imminent decision by talking about the history of John Tyler and what pushed us to that decision. Think for a moment about Napoleon Bonaparte. How has history portrayed this figure? It varies depending on who tells the story. Conquerors tend to shape history, but their actions may be seen as heroic or tyrannical, depending on where you stand. If you look at French artists, they celebrate Napoleon's victories, while Spanish artists whose people endured the pointy end of his sword admonish his atrocities. The same holds true for John Tyler, our school's namesake. Tyler, an accidental president, is revered by some, yet his legacy carries a dark shadow of bigotry and betrayal. He advocated for slavery's spread and wrote despicably about abolitionists. His actions, far from noble, perpetrated the inhuman institution of slavery. He joined the Confederacy, enraged by Lincoln's attempt to form a more perfect union. This isn't about race and changing the name is not about erasing history, but rather refusing to honor a man who upheld such reprehensible views. As a community, we can't in good conscience celebrate someone who saw my children as less than human. My children, Zali, Kingston, who just spoke, and Kit have spent all their elementary years at Tyler. They deserve better than to walk through its halls decorated with the name of a man that betrayed his country and stood against the very values we hold dear. We seek to create an environment where our children can thrive without venerating those who perpetuated these injustices. Our school represents diversity. Its name symbolizes oppression and division. Renaming our school Shirley Chisholm Elementary isn't just a new name. It's about embracing a legacy of courage, equality, and progress. Shirley Chisholm, a trailblazer for civil rights, embodies the values we want our children to embrace, beacon of hope and inspiration for future generations. I urge you all to support our community in this change. Let's replace a name steeped with bigotry with one that reflects an inclusive, empowering environment we aspire to create. Our children deserve a name that inspires them to be the best version of themselves, free from the shadow tainted past. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Kershaw. Leah Siskind. I'm told she's not here. Genevieve Smith.
Oh, hi there. Sorry, I'm actually in the room with Dr. Brand and all the kids, so we'll just swing the camera around over here. Hi, everyone.
You're Leah Siskind?
Yes, I am.
Excellent.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I'm Leah Siskind. I'm the president of the Tyler Parent Teacher Association. We have, as you've started to see, we have an incredible school with a fabulous principal, committed teachers, and a really solid community. Our students, as you've heard, deserve a school name that they can be proud of, named after a person who inspires them. We can't judge every historical figure by today's norms and values, but we do need to inspire our children with figures that they can relate to and seek to emulate. If we were to raise children in the image of John Tyler, they would be hapless and inept leaders at best, or slave-owning traitors at worst. However, if we were to raise children in the image of Shirley Chisholm, they would be trailblazers with an unyielding commitment to social justice, civil rights, and gender equality. You've already heard the most compelling arguments from our students. They have participated in the democratic process for over 3 years of deliberating over and selecting a new name for the institution, which plays a crucial role in their development. They deserve to see the results of this democratic process. Seeing those results without delay can affirm the power of collective action to make real change. In conclusion, let me share an inspiring story that truly captures the essence of Shirley Chisholm and positions her as an exemplary role model for our students today and in the future. Upon becoming the first African-American woman elected to Congress, Chisholm was assigned to the seemingly inconspicuous Agriculture Committee by the House's leadership. It was a move that suggests she might have little influence, especially considering her constituents were inner city New Yorkers. Instead of viewing it as a setback, Chisholm saw an opportunity. With a quiet yet determined resolve, she transformed her position into a platform for addressing two pressing issues: hunger among women and children in poverty, and the problem of crop overproduction by American farmers. Through her strategic efforts, Chisholm not only expanded the food stamp program, but also played a pivotal role in establishing the Special Supplemental Nutritional Program for Women, Infants, and Children, which we all know is now called WIC. Shirley Chisholm's unwavering determination and purpose turned what seemed like a slight into a catalyst for positive change. She navigated challenges with grace and resilience, leaving an indelible mark on policy that continues to impact lives today. As we consider mentors for our students, Shirley Chisholm stands out as an exemplar, preparing them for life's challenges with a blend of courage, strategic thinking, and a commitment to making a meaningful impact. Our students face diverse challenges, and not all of them have had an easy journey. Many have had to overcome significant obstacles even to reach where they are today. By encouraging them to follow in Chisholm's resilient footsteps, we empower them not only to succeed in their individual lives, but also contribute to making the world a better place for everyone. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Siskin. Genevieve Smith.
So we have a couple of the students listed, but they have already given testimony. So we've had Genevieve Smith and Cynthia have already spoken. So that, I think that wraps us up for the Tyler witnesses.
Thank you. Vanessa Grant. I'm told to make a note. You all need to stick around because there may be some questions from council members. Next up, though, is Vanessa Grant.
Good morning, Chairman Mendelson and honorable members of the Council of the District of Columbia. My name is Vanessa Grant, the president of the Federal City Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And on behalf of the chapter, I come before you today to voice our enthusiastic support for Bill 25-539, the Shirley Chisholm Elementary School Redesignation Act of 2023. We commend this committee for recognizing the importance of commemorating Shirley Chisholm's legacy and for considering the renaming of Tyler Elementary School to appropriately honor her contributions. Since our founding in 1913, right here in Washington, D.C. at Howard University, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated has dedicated itself to public service and uplifting communities around the globe. Locally, our Federal City Alumni Chapter has been an ally to the District of Columbia in several ways. Just this year, we have led educational initiatives where we've partnered with Anacostia High School students to teach career readiness. We've broadcasted our support of DC statehood by hosting programs and collaborating with other states such as Texas and the entire eastern region of our sorority to ensure that our members are aware of DC's fight to become the 51st state. We have also been at the forefront of drafting the passage of a national resolution to support DC statehood. We promoted social justice, including our advocacy for fair funding to support Black mothers, locate missing Black women and girls, and create health equity throughout our service areas of wards 5, 7, and 8. We've also empowered district residents through voter registration drives at metro stations, the 8th Street Festival, and numerous other community events. With a clear record of public service to the District of Columbia as our backdrop, we enthusiastically support this bill, not only because Shirley Chisholm was an esteemed member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, but because her clear legacy of public service, fearlessness, and a desire to create a fairer world unequivocally aligns with our purpose, mission, and continued service today. Sora Chisholm, a pioneering civil rights activist and a dynamic force in American history, strongly exemplifies our organization's mission. She was the first Black woman elected to Congress and went on to become the first Black woman to run for president of the United States. Throughout her career, Chisholm fiercely advocated for education, gender equality, and socioeconomic justice. Shirley Chisholm, a prominent figure in our American politics, courageously fought for gender and racial equality throughout her career. She believed that true progress could only be achieved when all individuals were treated fairly, regardless of their gender or race. With conviction, Chisholm declared, "I want to be remembered as a Black woman who lived in the 20th century, who dared to be herself, and as a catalyst of change in America." Her unwavering commitment to equality emphasized the importance of taking action to remove barriers, advocating, "You don't make progress by standing on the sidelines, whimpering and complaining. You make progress by implementing ideas." Shirley Chisholm left an unforgettable mark on history, shaping the narrative of gender and race equality and reminding us all of the power of our voices and actions. Soar Chisholm's impact on our community and the United States as a whole is remarkable. She shattered glass ceilings, courageously breaking down barriers for women and marginalized communities. By renaming Tyler Elementary School as Shirley Chisholm Elementary School, we pay tribute to her unwavering dedication to educational equity and her transformative influence on the nation. And her name and legacy will continue to inspire generations of young people. We express our deepest gratitude to the committee for considering this important legislation. We understand the significance of renaming the school and the profound impact it can have on future generations.
Thank you, Ms. Grant. That concludes all the witnesses. I don't have any questions for you all since you were supportive, but let me turn to colleagues. Councilmember Allen.
Thank you very much. And thanks everybody for your testimony. In particular, Cynthia, Genevieve, and Kingston, great job. And thank you for sharing your testimony. And Kingston, it's great to see you again. And just so you know, I kept the book you gave me. So I was able to read some of the letters from some of your classmates. You know, it's hard. I mean, when we have young people come give us testimony, I'm struck by how often it's just pretty plain, direct, simple, honest, and it just kind of tells us what we all need to hear. And I don't think we could have had a better panel than the students themselves. And I think part of what is so important, and then Mr. Kershaw, Kingston, your dad, did an excellent job of helping also talk about like why this matters. Names matter. And I think, Kingston, it was you who said, there's not a single teacher who spends a moment during your day teaching you anything about John Tyler, and for good reason. But you spend a good amount of time talking about, learning about, trying to model Shirley Chisholm and what she represents. And so I guess to the students, I'm just going to ask you a little bit, could you just kind of expand on like, why does the name matter? What is it you're learning about Shirley Chisholm, what she did, what her legacy is, that, you know, in a year or so when we walk past that school and you see that name on the side of the building, what does that mean to you? And help kind of talk about what that means for you and your classmates.
When we truly dive in onto why we want to change our name, we can find a much deeper meaning into it. Because while we're changing our name, we're changing it from a horrible person to a horrible role model, which is not going to help people that are just coming in. For example, this is not just for our generation. We could think about the generations to come for Tyler and think about, oh, are they going to want to learn or know about some horrible guy? Sure, it's going to help them in the future, but for now, we don't need them to go on to such horrible topics. And we can instead let them, from a young age, when they at 3 years old, at least, of course, when they're starting to develop, you know, their memory, so they can have a memory at Tyler of knowing that they learned about a person who's going to change their lives forever, and who shows you that a normal person can do such crazy things. One of my favorite things to sometimes say to people who like feel a little down, like they don't matter, this is a big world, right? But it's so small too. That's why you can bump into your friends all the time. It's so small. It's a big world, but it's so small, and there's so much change you can do, and you can't worry about the being little in this amazing universe that we have.
I'm voting for you for president, Kingston. Man, phenomenal job. Thank you. Just real quickly to our PTA leadership, I just want to also note that you all went through, and I know it felt slow at times, but you went through a very deliberate and intentional consensus building, inclusive process. And I think that's why you have everybody so excited about this name change and have really laid out the case so well. So I just want to make sure I thank you for going through that process. I know it's not easy. I know it took a lot of work, and I'm sure there were moments when you said, why can't we just get this done already? But it was the hard work that you all helped lead that really helped set the tone and helped us be able to make this change. And I'm looking forward to being able to see this come before the full council and make a vote. And to Dr. Brand, your leadership there is just phenomenal and outstanding, and we're so proud of you. And so thank you for all the incredible things you're doing there. On just a very quick logistical piece, and I know when DCPS comes up later, we'll just kind of talk through some of the logistics around it. I know that we have a school modernization coming up at Tyler, and so that's going to be a great opportunity for us to think about how do we fully brand the school in a way in which Shirley Chisholm and her history and her legacy is throughout the building. So that's going to be a really great opportunity that's coming up very soon. And I'm excited to partner with DCPS. I'm thinking about what that's going to look like and how we make that so impactful. So to the students, thank you again. To the parents and school community, Dr. Brand, thank you all so much. And thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilmember Allen. Let me see if there are any other questions. Councilmember Henderson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to all of the public witnesses, especially our young scholars from Tyler, soon to be Chisholm Elementary School. I feel like you are great advocates for this renaming, and Kingston, as Councilmember Allen said, you have my vote as well. Very, very inspiring. I wanted to ask a question to the PTA leaders, similar, and I'll probably ask this question to DCPS as well. You know, I have no issues whatsoever with Ms. Chisholm. I think she's an incredible and inspiring leader. But I have noticed a pattern now with our renamings of schools of individuals who don't necessarily have a strong DC history connection. And I'm curious, when you all put out the first surveys for input or soliciting names, did you provide any suggestions up front, or did you just allow for anyone to submit naming information?
I can answer this one. Anything was allowed to be nominated by students and staff. So there were definitely some names that were a little bit out there. We did ask in the nomination process that people keep in mind what our school has been known for, what we're proud of, which is that is a dual language school that has been known for its strength in programming in the arts, and that it is a community that has been largely African-American historically. And so we really wanted people to keep that in mind with their nominations. It wasn't until later that we had the 121 eligible names that we came up with the criteria, where one of the 7 criteria was relevance to the District of Columbia.
Okay, so that was one of the criteria that you all put up. Great. Like I said, I think as we're going forward and sort of, you know, I think there are 10 or so other schools who are still on the list for a renaming. I just don't want us to get to a point where we get to the end and we realize we've named it for a lot of national historical figures, but those who were pioneers here in the district or did work here in the district haven't found recognition. And so I just want to make sure that that stays at the forefront of some of the work that we're doing. But I don't have any other further questions. Thank you all so much for your testimony. And I will say, Mr. O'Leary, thank you so much for your testimony. I'm going to have some questions for DCPS. Unfortunately, the bill for MacArthur renaming didn't include the same level of detailed information around the process that went in for Chisholm. So I don't know what the other options were in the survey. All I know is that I think over 500 people responded. So I hope to get some of that information out in the questions with DCPS. But thank you so much for being here as well and for your service. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Chairman.
Councilmember Henderson. Mr. O'Leary, I do have a question. In your testimony, my takeaway was that you are not supportive of the MacArthur name, but then I heard you say you could live with it. Did I hear you correctly or not?
If it's going to be just for the location, which I don't think people are thinking about MacArthur being anything but named after Douglas MacArthur. I understand the argument as far as MacArthur Boulevard. I just think that and it's not going to be Douglas MacArthur. The law says that you have to have the full name of a person if it's named. I mean, I did a little bit of studying on that. So that's why we were Francis L. Cardozo High School or Paul Lawrence Dunbar High School or Otterby Wills. So it's not going to be named Douglas MacArthur High School. It's going to be named MacArthur for MacArthur Boulevard. I just, I don't know how much, I know there was the argument was that you can't name something after someone who's living, but the code says that those four categories, the president, the mayor, the council members, can all be living people who can be named, a building can be named after them. I understand it, but it's not in my ward either. So that would be I think when people see the name MacArthur High School, they're going to automatically assume it's Douglas MacArthur. And I don't have any real positive feelings about Douglas MacArthur. They're not as dramatic as John Tyler's horrible history. But Douglas MacArthur did some bad things during his whole life that aren't something that you'd want to copy.
Thank you. Thank you to all the witnesses. You all are excused, and I'm going to recognize now Sarah Parker from the District of Columbia Public Schools. As you are dismissed, I think that's the way I can put it, you are still able to watch the hearing, but you won't be on the panel. Ms. Parker, when you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman Mendelson, council members, staff, and members of the public. I am Sarah Parker, and I lead the District of Columbia's Public Schools Engagement and Partnerships Office. Our office leads DCPS's strategy for partnering with families, communities, partners, and staff at the district and school level to improve outcomes for every student by fostering collaborative and authentic relationships between schools and the greater DCPS community. DCPS takes the engagement around school names seriously. It is such an important part of a school's identity, culture, and place in the community. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on the three bills here today under consideration by the council. Bill 25-539, the Shirley Chisholm Elementary School Redesignation Act of 2023, Bill 25-350, the MacArthur High School Designation Act of 2023, and Bill 25-473, the School Facilities Sponsorship and Naming Amendment Act of 2023. First, Bill 25-539, the Shirley Chisholm Elementary School Redesignation Act of 2023. DCPS wholeheartedly supports this legislation and the renaming of Tyler Elementary School to Shirley Chisholm Elementary School. I want to express my profound gratitude to Principal Brand, the students, some of whom you heard from today, the staff and parents who have engaged in a lengthy process to rename their school for someone who better reflects their values. I know Principal Brand and the school community have shared this work already, so I'm just here to emphasize the care in which they engaged on this issue. They provided surveys, evaluated submissions based on criteria established by the community, and ultimately had an election for the 4 highest scoring candidates. The final choice, Shirley Chisholm Elementary School, is before you today, and we urge you to pass this legislation. I would like to thank Councilmember Allen for introducing this legislation and ANC 6B for supporting it. Next, Bill 25-350, the MacArthur High School Designation Act of 2023. DCPS wholeheartedly supports this legislation, formally naming our newest high school. In the spring of 2021, we began the community engagement and outreach for what would become MacArthur High School. Through that process, DCPS engaged with over 2,000 stakeholders to ensure we created a school of which the community could be proud. As a part of that engagement, DCPS conducted a public online survey to solicit school name nominations. More than 540 community members participated, and the name MacArthur High School received the most support. Many respondents emphasized the desire for continuity, by maintaining the name that DCPS and the community had been using for more than a year, as well as their preference for designating a name based on a location, not a person. As you know, the high school is located on MacArthur Boulevard. Thank you to Councilmember Fruman for introducing this legislation. And finally, Bill 25-473, the School Facilities Sponsorship and Naming Amendment Act of 2023. Thank you, Chairman, for introducing this legislation that would clarify DCPS's role when naming interior and exterior spaces on school grounds. We agree that DCPS should be able to decide how such spaces are named. There is a fine line between sponsorship, donation, and advertising, and we appreciate the committee's attention to this important distinction by including legislative language on the sides of any logos DCPS would display. We support the intent of the bill and request one change. Like the committee, we do not want to give the impression that an organization or person is paying DCPS to advertise. As this legislation moves through the legislative process, we request that the legislation be revised to state that DCPS is authorized to name indoor and outdoor spaces without that naming being initiated by an organization or individual. This change would clarify that organizations and individuals would not be required to donate or sponsor namings initiated by DCPS. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on these bills today, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Parker. I do have a couple of questions for you.
Yeah.
$110 for me, $5 for everybody else. Let me see. Your reading of the Bill 473, 25-473, is that in all instances, DCPS would have to have a sponsor who's paying in order to name an interior space?
That was our understanding. So I think the clarification was that that was the piece that we wanted to remove or clarify around the sponsorship.
So for example, if we want to name the auditorium of a school, I'm going to say Dunbar, name it Smith Auditorium. Your testimony is that DCPS should have the flexibility to do that, correct?
Yes.
And if the Smith family comes to you, DCPS, and says, we would like to contribute $1 million to renovate Dunbar and name the auditorium Smith Auditorium, you like that the bill would give you that flexibility?
Yes.
We
just to clarify, we just did not want to require that there has to be a sponsorship or donation.
Yes.
And that was our reading. Yeah.
No, and that's
Okay.
helpful. It may not be my intent in how I authored it, but
Okay.
how it's read is important. That's why we have these hearings.
Thank you.
Do you have a sense of what the cost is to name or rename these buildings? So MacArthur, I don't think really counts because it doesn't have an official name, but Tyler would need to be renamed.
Right.
Do you have a sense of the cost?
Every school building is different. As you know, we just renamed our largest neighborhood high school, and that was a fairly large fiscal undertaking that actually spanned a year, I would say. When it comes to elementary schools, the cost can be a lot less depending on where the name is. Obviously, there's always a name outside. There's a lot less athletic programs, for instance, at the elementary school. There's always other implications, though, usually both facility as well as otherwise. So it's hard for me to give an exact number, but I think there's a range. So I think it could go from anywhere maybe to a few $100,000 to over $1 million.
What was the cost of Jackson Reed? Do you know roughly?
I don't know the exact amount, but I believe it was over $1 million. But our intent when we do this, as Councilmember Allen mentioned, is to couple it when we can with modernization projects. So obviously with a Tyler to Shirley Chisholm, we would be able to do some of the major facility renovations with the, in coordination with the modernization.
Has DCPS been approached in the past by, I'll characterize them as boosters who would like to name something and offered contributions?
The most recent, which I think you are familiar, is not a booster, but an alumni association, for instance, at Coolidge, where we worked with them to donate the scoreboard, if you will, at their track and field. And so that opportunity came about, and I think we welcomed it and we followed the donations process. Offhand, I can't think of other recent booster clubs, if you will, or alumni group.
As I asked the question, I was thinking of Ellington and Chappelle, Dave Chappelle.
Yes, I am not as familiar with that renaming. I was not as involved with that one. So if there's more details, I could get back to you on that.
I may have some additional questions, but I'm going to turn to colleagues first. Councilmember Allen, do you have any questions?
Thanks. Ms. Parker, thank you very much for
Yeah.
your testimony. And I'm excited about working in partnership with you on the renaming to Shirley Chisholm. So just a couple of quick logistical questions that kind of help us build out the record on this. So we have the school modernization coming up. Current capital plan is that would, in my latest conversation with the chancellor, that would be school year 26 would be when it begins. And it is a great opportunity because from the full-fledged rebranding and renaming, we can basically build that into the cost we would have already, because you would have had to buy a sign that said Tyler, so you're just going to buy a sign that says Chisholm. So from a cost perspective, there really is no cost, correct? Like when we're talking about pairing it with a modernization plan.
Right.
What would, from your perspective, and I realize you can't speak for all facilities, but from an engagement perspective, what are some of the ways that we should try to think about having the school community partner with DCPS and DGS and whoever the contractor is around, it's not just gonna be a name on the side of the building, but how do we help incorporate who Shirley Chisholm was, what that legacy is, the whole point of why we're renaming this. What are some of the ways either you've seen other schools successfully do that in terms of a way to incorporate that into a modernization, or ways you should think the school community should maybe start planning ahead of how to help give constructive feedback during that planning process?
Right. I think that's a great question, Councilmember Allen. I would say, especially from a facility perspective, I think there's a great opportunity to honor those who are naming our schools after in murals, obviously in renamings, both external and internal, there's opportunity there. I think as we think about our core work, there's curriculum, there's, class design. I think there's a lot of ways that the school can be very creative, both artistically, as we all know here, Tyler is recently changed to dual language, and I actually learned something myself today around Shirley Chisholm and her ability to both speak Spanish. So how do we honor her in that way as well? So I think there's a lot of opportunities, again, that may or may not have any fiscal impact.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think the school community will be very excited about
to engage
that
around
partnership and engagement to say, here's kind of the vision of how I think we help tell that story to accomplish what we want, which is, Kingston so well said, like nary a word about John Tyler. But oh my goodness, in my visits there, Shirley Chisholm is on the walls already and is in the mouth of the teachers and the students, and in a very, very positive way. The other piece I was going to ask is obviously with a construction project that's just a couple of years away, so it's very near. My hunch is the council will pass this legislation sometime early in the new year. It will essentially take effect for the next school year, so school year 24-25.
Right.
But we don't want to have a huge cost implication, but we probably do have to, take the exterior name off and put a new name up. And I think, I know in my conversations with the current PTA and school leadership, they're not expecting the full brand, knowing that, the rebuild is coming, but they would like to see some naming change. So is that I don't think, you talked about Jackson Reed being $1 million project. I don't think we're anything close to that.
No.
With this. So is it fairly de minimis in terms of overall costs to be able to remove the exterior name and do some of the I'll call it stage one of the renaming, and really the full renaming you'll probably see really encapsulated, as we talked about, in the modernization.
Right. I would have to get back to you, Councilmember, on details since I don't run the facilities team. But I would say that it would be our intention to work with you and council around what it could look like to do a phased renaming, definitely. We've done that in the past where we've had shifts, for instance, in Ward 7 at Whitlock, where we put up a temporary sign at least. And you started to see the changes, right? We would start to do system changes so that all of our systems turn over to Shirley Chisholm. So everything would be put in motion, I think, as soon as the legislation is finalized, and we can work with council on that.
I
Yeah.
appreciate it. Thank
Yeah.
you, Ms. Parker. Look forward to working with you on this and appreciate
Great.
your testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Allen. Councilmember Truman.
Thank you very much, Chairman Mendelson. A couple of things, not necessarily questions, on the cost, for example,
Yeah.
at Jackson Reed. Some of that's uniform, some of it's
Mhm.
remaking the gym floor, which are things that would have to be replaced or upgraded in any case. So
Mhm.
there is a cost, but it's defraying to some extent a future cost when uniforms would have to be replaced in any case. So there is a cost to this, but the benefit is huge.
Yeah.
And the terms of the benefit, I want to thank all of the witnesses who testified, but one of the things, a huge thing, is the educational benefit. The way in which these kids and the community engaged on this issue probably as compelling of a thing as they have learned in their years at what was Tyler will now be Chisholm. So there's a value to it, and it's great that the district is doing this. I would hope that we would be continuing to do this a couple a year and use it as a way of educating children and educating ourselves as a community, reminding us of the history and of the hopeful figures in our history, the negative history and the hopeful figures in our history. Again, I want to thank you for your testimony. I want to thank you for the work that you've done on MacArthur High School and the whole DCPS team. I want to thank the witnesses who testified. It was a particularly compelling panel, going from the children at Tyler, now Chisholm, to Fraser O'Leary, who there may not be anybody out there who has more years of commitment to education in the District of Columbia. And I really want to appreciate Fraser's testimony on this. There is a certain ambivalence here. The MacArthur choice isn't like the Chisholm choice. The MacArthur choice has a momentum, comes from the community. But I think it is very important as we stand up that high school that we move forward and keep the momentum up. And that means using the place name, not a person name, moving forward. And I want to thank Fraser for raising the issue. But I also think it's really important we plow forward and get this done and keep a successful story moving. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilmember Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Ms. Parker.
Hi.
As I kind of alluded to in my questions to the public witnesses, can you provide a little bit of color around the process on MacArthur? We just don't have the same level of detail as what happened with Chisholm from the public witness testimony.
Of course, I'd be happy to, Councilmember. And I was involved myself. In 2021, we kicked off sort of the broader engagement around the beginning of what would become MacArthur. So that included a community working group. You're probably familiar with how we stand up community working groups, especially when it comes to new schools. So we ensure that there are voices from the soon to be community, neighborhood commissions, potentially parents as well. So it's a representative group, and that group engaged on everything from the school name to curriculum to programming to facilities. And then the survey that you referenced, which was in the summer of 2022, was the one main survey that was done around MacArthur. If you want to know a little bit more
Yeah,
about,
no, I'm just, so,
about that
you know,
survey as well.
I know on Tyler, there were
Mhm.
121 names that were brought forward and they narrowed it down to 4. I'm just trying to get a bit more information. Especially because, well, if you don't.
Yeah, let me tell,
Okay.
so the survey that was conducted, as you mentioned, it had over 500 respondents. MacArthur High School, not a general, MacArthur was the top choice. The others that were named were Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Barack Obama, Palisades. There were Potomac River, for instance. So there was several like locations nominated. Western High School, which we have seen from the
Yes.
past.
Yes, yes.
DCPS had a Western high school as well. Eleanor Holmes Norton, Frederick Douglass. There was quite a few names. I actually don't have the exact amount, like the 121 amount.
Okay.
Um,
Which is,
but-
that's fine.
Yeah.
In terms of the survey process,
Mhm.
did it do ranked choice?
um,
Probably not. I'm just gonna guess.
I don't
Not that
know the
I'm
answer
pushing
to
a
that.
particular
Right,
thing,
right.
but one
Right.
of the issues that we had with Wilson to Jackson Reed was that everyone was like, well, August Wilson was the one who won, and it actually
Mm-hmm.
was like 15% of the vote as opposed to getting to something more detailed. So I guess because my time is sort of going down. When the mayor did the DC Faces Working Group, there were 21 schools that they named that they thought were problematic. 19 of them were DCPS schools. I think we've maybe done 3 or 4
Mhm.
off the list. Is it now the position that we won't engage in a renaming process unless there is a modernization that is on the table?
Thank you for the question, Councilmember. Our intention is to work with school communities, just as with Tyler. If the school community agrees, and it's really important that the entire school community feels really good about the renaming process and they come to us, that we work with them.
So the school community has to initiate.
Yes.
Okay.
That's where we stand right now, but we're really interested in working with school communities to ensure that the school name does represent their values, and then of course adhere to the letter of the law and the DC regs.
Okay, so will you all engage in a similar process with the new Center City Middle
The
School?
Euclid Center City, yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
similar to what you did with MacArthur?
That will look more similar to MacArthur, leveraging the community working group.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. In terms of engagement, are you all concerned that you don't have a standard process, right? You're allowing each school community to kind of design what their process is going to be for themselves. For the Tyler Chisholm community, they decided to provide an emphasis on, or I guess extra points or criteria ranking for relationship to DC. If another school community chooses not to do that, do you all have some concerns about that?
Thank you for the question. One thing that we have done in the past, and that I think we'd consider again, is having something like an equity check or perhaps a standardized rubric that we would advise schools on, which would ensure that schools are being named for a variety of individuals, men, women, those African-American, Latino that represent the DC community, as well as those that have ties to DC. We have done a similar rubric in the past, and I think that's something that we could work with school communities on.
Okay.
But we do believe that school communities know their community the best, and we want them to work with us around the process.
Right. I just, I'm not from here, but
Yeah.
I have also tried to become a student of DC history.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that folks who are DC born and
Mhm.
bred don't
Yeah.
get lost in our desires to honor modern
Mhm.
historical figures
Yeah.
who national, but not necessarily from here. I know you said that a school community will initiate. Is there a guideline sheet? Like if a principal were to reach out to you today and say, hey, our PTA knows we're on the list and they think this is now the time, do you all have okay, and here's what you need to do?
We are currently updating our guidance
Okay.
to schools.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Councilmember Henderson. Councilmember Parker, do you have questions?
I do not have questions, but I wanted to thank you for
Thank
the
you.
portion of your testimony that I caught. And I just also wanted to note in particular that I'm really excited to tout the Chisholm School when the official naming happens. And I think it will be a great legacy for both the district, but DCPS students who will learn in that building under such a significant name. So thank you again for being here.
Thank you.
And I imagine the hearing will continue to move forward.
Actually, the hearing's about to end, but I do have one question for you.
Thank you.
Would you provide the committee after the hearing
Mhm.
with the data about the naming for MacArthur?
Yes,
You went through some of that. It would just be helpful for us to have that in the record.
of course. Yes,
And I
we
think
can
we
do that.
already
And
have
it's,
it
it is
regardless.
posted online, but we'll go ahead and provide that to you as
Great.
well.
Great. I have no other questions for you. I think
Thank you.
my colleague is maybe thinking about the hearing we have this afternoon, which doesn't start for 3 hours. Thank you very much for your
Thank you.
testimony. And I want to again thank all the witnesses earlier who testified, who took time out. And I hope it wasn't daunting for anyone. I'm thinking of the younger testifiers who this is probably their first time testifying before the Council of the District of Columbia, and I hope they felt welcomed. The record in this matter is open for 2 weeks. That is, it will close at, that is just the wrong hearing notice. Close at 5 p.m. on Tuesday, December 12th, 2023. The time is 12:36 p.m. and this hearing is adjourned.